beautiful people, and welcome. In today's video, we will be discussing the volume of cylinders and prisms. As always, disclaimer time, I am a human, so if I make a mistake, that's okay. Please learn from my mistakes. We are also on campus, so if you hear any noise in the background, I do apologize. All right, let's get started with the definition of a prism. So a prism is a solid with congruent bases and lateral edges that connect the bases. The most basic prism that we're going to be working with is going to be a rectangular prism. So it looks something like that. So the base is the same on the top and on the bottom. Now, because we're dealing with prisms, we're dealing with 3D things, solids, you can move it around. So the way I'm thinking is another prism that you can think about is a cube. And you can move it around, so the base doesn't have to be on the bottom. It can be anywhere around it. So if we have a cube with all of the sides being the same unit of measure, we have a cube, and then we have something like a rectangle where we have the base. Let's call this the, what do we want to call it? We want to call it the width, the length, the height, or the length, the width, the height, up to you. It's all the same thing. So if this is the length, this is the width, this is the height, we have that. So let's call this the base. So you have a base on top and you have a base on the bottom. And it's super important that we identify what the base is. Again, the base does not have to be on the bottom. If we wanted to call these two on the side base, we can. So if we wanted to call this one a base and this one a base, we can. Okay? So the first thing I want to mention is that the bases are congruent and they are parallel. The lateral edges that this definition is referring to are these here. And again, if we're talking about a base that's on top and the bottom, then these lateral edges connect that top and bottom. Now, however, if we were to talk about these red ones, then the lateral edges would connect from side to side. So the lateral edges just connect the one base to the other base. The first thing that you have to identify whenever you're dealing with these cylinders or prisms is you always want to name the prism first. And the way that I recommend you guys naming the prism is choosing the most complicated shape on that prism and making that your base. So choose the most complicated. And make that your base. And again, your base does not have to be on the bottom. It can be on the side, okay? It can be in the front. So, doesn't have to be on the bottom. Another thing I want to talk about is faces. Now, faces are just how many sides a prism has. For example, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, the one that's in front 5, and the one that's in behind 6. So a rectangular prism has 6 faces. This one also has 6 faces. Now faces are going to come a little bit more in handy when we're doing surface area, but I do want to mention faces as well. All right, so step number 1 is always naming the prism. Choose the most complicated shape on the prism and make that your base. After that, throw in the word prism after that, and you're pretty much done naming it. So, for example, rectangular, prism, prism, I can spell. There's rectangular prism. Another prism that we can have is triangular prism. Another one that we can have is trapezoidal. Another one that we can have is a pentagonal prism. And what that means, and you see with us naming it, we know what the base is. And it's super important to know what the base is because of the formula for the volume. Now let's jump into that formula. Actually, you know what? Let's draw these out real quick because I do want to point something. So rectangular prism usually looks like this. You can also lift it up. So for example, make this, let's see if I can draw this real quick. So make it stand up instead of having it lie on its side. Triangular prism, again, you can have it lie flat this way. So notice on a triangular prism, you have a rectangle on the bottom. Let me zoom in just a little bit. My drawing's not perfect. But you have this rectangle on the bottom. That is not your base. Go to number 1. Number 1 says choose the most complicated shape on the prism and make that your base. So a rectangle is not as complicated as a triangle. A triangle is more complicated. So we're going to go with a triangle as our base. So for a trapezoidal, so let's draw a trapezoid and make that into a prism. And again, if you notice, you have a rectangle on the bottom. Oh, you can't see that. You have a rectangle here on the bottom. We don't want that rectangle because a trapezoid is more complicated than a rectangle. So we're going to choose our trapezoids as our base. Pentagonal. Penta means 5. That means we have a 5-sided base. And again, this one's going to give me a little trouble to draw. You know, we're going to pretend that that's perfect. No, we're not. That's embarrassing. Let's try this again. You know, I don't have to draw it, but I feel like I need to draw it. Nope, not going to draw it. Sorry, guys. If you want to know what a pentagonal prism looks like, you're going to have to Google it. Anyways, penta means 5, so we have this is our base. All right. A lot of talk about bases. So let's do one more. And this one actually has its own name, and that is a cylinder. So a cylinder looks like a prism, but it has 2 circles for the bases. So you have a circle on top, you have a circle on the bottom. Now, super duper important is you need to know what the base is. So the base is a circle because it's so round, right? We know what a circle is, it's round, that we are also going to need to know what the area of that circle is. And that is, what is the area of a circle? And that is pi r squared. And that's going to come important in just a little bit. All right, So a prism is a solid with congruent bases, lateral edges. The base doesn't, ooh, actually that's perfect timing. The base does not have to be on the bottom, okay? You can choose the base to be whichever base you want. When you do choose a base, you have to go with the most complicated shape on the prism. So a triangle is more complicated than a rectangle. You have a trapezoid that's more complicated than a triangle, than a rectangle. So go with the most complicated shape, name it. So like a rectangular prism, triangular prism, trapezoidal prism. Once you name it, you have what your base is. Another type of prism is your cylinder. Cylinder has a circle top and bottom for your base, and then you have your kind of like the lateral edge, but it's not lateral edge because it doesn't actually meet at a right angle. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about formulas. Okay, there is one formula for both cylinder and for prism. And that is the volume is equal to the area of the base times the height of the prism. So the capital B, you must write it as a capital B. If you write it as small b, that's a big no-no. Capital B means area of the base. And this H right here, sometimes you'll see it as H with a little subscript P. That means the height of the prism. The height of the prism must be perpendicular to the base, not slanted. All right, let's do some examples. Example 1. Oops. Step number 1 is always naming it. What do we have? We have a rectangular prism. How do I know? The most complicated shape I see here is a rectangle. What is the formula? It is volume is equal to the area of the base times the height. Don't say the letters, actually say the area of the base times the height. Okay, so what is the base? The base is a rectangle. So base is a rectangle. This is the base. So how do we calculate the area of the base? Well, here we have lowercase b, base times height, for a standard rectangle. So what is the base of it? And the base of it is 60. What is the height? So it just depends on which rectangle you're looking at. If you're looking at the one on the bottom, your height would be this right here, which matches this measurement on the other side. So 120 feet. You could also choose this one out in front. It would just change your prism height. Okay, so the volume is equal to the area of the base times the height. So volume is equal to, what's the area of the base? Well, the area of the base is 60 times 120. The height of the prism is 8 feet. So the volume total is 57,600. Now, if you leave your answer like this, it would be marked incorrect. And that is because volume always has a unit of measure that is cubed. So here's your first thinking bubble. A thinking bubble is literally a bubble that you create to put your thoughts in. So volume is always cubed. If you don't have units of measure, then you're going to write units cubed, or you can say units cubed. All right, let's do another example. Example number 2. Bear with me while I draw this out. All right, so here it is. Step number 1, name it. What do we have? Most complicated shape is a trapezoid. So here's the bottom, right? But we're not talking about the base bottom. We're talking about what is the most complicated shape on that prism, and that is a trapezoid. So here's your trapezoidal prism. That means your base is a trapezoid. So we're taking that base, whoop, and we're going to need to calculate what the area of the base is. So it's the area of the trapezoid. Let me shift this up just a little bit. All right, I didn't give you any measurements, so let's do that. This is 7, and this is 8, this is 4, and this is 3. Now notice this symbol right here, and that's telling you that it is perpendicular to the base, which means that is your height. Perpendicular to the base, that is your height. So where is your trapezoid? Your trapezoid is here. So this is your base, and then the other one is here. And again, those are congruent bases, so they are exactly the same. So we're taking a look at this trapezoid. So what is the bottom of the trapezoid? It is 7. What is the height of the trapezoid? The height of the trapezoid is 3. And then what is the top part of the trapezoid? Well, again, these are congruent, so this means this is 4. So we're going to find the area of a trapezoid. So the area of the trapezoid is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height of the trapezoid. And that will give you the area of the trapezoid. All right, so imagine it as you're taking this prism and you're standing it up. So now this red base is now on the bottom, and then the other red base is on the top. So now you have this prism that's standing up like this. So then what is the height of your prism? So volume is equal to the area of the base times the height of the prism. So volume is equal to, so what is the area of the base? The area of the base is 1/2 times base 1, which is 4, plus base 2, which is 7, times the height of the trapezoid, which is 3. And then, so this right here is all the area of the base. And then we need to multiply by the height of the prism. So the height of the prism is not 3, because recall, we now have a trapezoidal prism, which means we are making this base be the bottom, the trapezoid's the bottom, so we're lifting up the prism. So now how tall is your prism? And that prism is now 8 tall. So, okay, we use our fancy dancy calculator here, and you can do this in steps if you want. So we're going to multiply everything out here, and that gives us 33 over 2 times our 8. So our volume is 132 meters cubed. Again, make sure that you are using your units of measure. Make sure you are cubing those units of measure. All right, let's see if I have one more example. Ooh, I do. I have 2 more examples for you. Okay. All right, so let's do a cylinder. We know this is a cylinder, so step number 1, name it, cylinder. We know that a cylinder has a base that is a circle. So we know that we need the area of a circle. So here's our circle. I didn't give you any measurements, so let me give you the measurements. So we know that the radius of the circle is 2. We know that the height of the cylinder is 4. So how do we calculate the area of the base? So the area of the base, the area of a circle is, and we kind of already went over that, pi r squared. So the area of the circle is pi times r squared. So we have, what do we have? We have 4 pi. You can't see that, and I apologize for that. There it is. So the area of the circle is 4 pi. So volume is equal to the area of the base times the height of the prism. So volume is equal to the area of the base, which we already discussed, is 4 pi. Height of the prism, we already said that was 4. So we have the volume of 16 pi centimeters cubed. Now, every year there is a question about how exact do you want my answers. If your answer includes pi, leave it in pi. This is your answer. If, however, the directions tell you to round, you have to round to whatever the directions tell you. So if they tell you round to the hundredths place, round to the thousandths place, round accordingly. Other than that, leave that alone, okay? All right, let's do one more example. Here's another cylinder for you. This right here, they tell you that the radius is 12, and they tell you that the height is 45. Now, to name this prism, this still is a cylinder, but it is a very specific cylinder. It's called an oblique cylinder. And oblique just means that it is not a right cylinder, so it's not upright. All right, our base is still a circle. That doesn't change. We know that we need the area of the base times the height of the prism. So here's our circle. We know our radius is 12. So then we have pi r squared. So we have pi times 12 squared. So then we have area of the base, which is, we said, pi times 12 squared. And the height of the prism they told us, which is 45. Again, multiply everything out, keep the pi. So we have 6,480 pi. And what are our units? I don't know. I didn't write it. So let's say there is, for an example, no units for your numbers. You can write units cubed, or you can say u cubed, whichever. Again, if the directions tell you to round, go ahead and round. If they don't, don't. All right, beautiful people, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you found any mistakes, please let me know. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.